A few weeks back, the most recent Ultra series wrapped up, and despite the fact that I'm still quite the Ultra novice, I really enjoyed it, and I wanted to kind of come on here and give some thoughts, do the old strike while the iron is hot general series review thing that so many of my contemporaries love to do, but I often neglect because up until recently, I've been a very busy boy and I haven't been able to. When we last talked about Ultraman, we talked about Zet, and Zet was a very good show. It kind of brought a lot of the elements of the new generation era to a really climactic apex. And so after that, they decided to take the era in a new direction, revisiting and doing tribute shows for the classic Ultra TDG trilogy, which was Tiga, Dyna, and Gaia. Those happened in like the late 90s, early 2000s kind of times. And they're very well respected, well loved, and well revealed shows, but I haven't seen them. So I was a bit trepidatious going into this new era with Ultraman Trigger, and I did try and keep excited. I tried to keep interested. I wanted to stay with it, but Trigger just wasn't very good, man. I did not like that show at all. It had a very hollow feeling protagonist, supporting characters who never got the development they needed, and lore that was just so insanely up its ass. The only thing that really held it back from being outright terrible to me was Koichi Sakamoto's directing. That man is a fucking goat, and the effects and his way of shooting things in that show was just so brilliant to look at. Just a shame that the rest of it couldn't have been as brilliant. So going into Decker, I was a bit down on Ultraman. I still wanted to be excited. I wanted to like the show because I always want to like every show, but it was hard. I was like, you're gonna have to win me over. And Decker kind of instantly did that because the concept alone was very interesting in that the Earth, the same Earth we had followed in the previous series, was now going to be enclosed in this barrier created by an alien race called the Sphere as an allegory for COVID, because in the universe that Trigger and Decker take place, we've colonized Mars. There's a lot of humans living on Mars. There's a lot of traffic back and forth. So cutting Earth off from Mars would affect Earth in some interesting kind of COVID-esque ways. And I know initially that sounds like the kind of sci-fi concept that could very easily fall flat on its face, and I was very worried that it would, but I don't think it does. I think the show does a very good job of exploring that kind of theme and subject matter in an allegorical way that never feels overbearing or like it's slapping you in the face. There's a lot of scenes of people still going about their daily lives, still doing stuff we're used to seeing people doing in everyday life in a non-COVID world. But you'll see these little things they can only do in the universe of Trigger and Decker that really drive home that allegory, like aliens being stranded on Earth or humans not being able to talk to their family members on Mars, those kinds of things. And I think it's very smart that they chose to do it in that way rather than just having everybody run around in face masks all the time. That could have felt a little lazy or maybe gotten very heavy-handed at times. But that's only talking about the show in a very general sense. Let's get into some of the characters and kind of explore the plot via them. And of course, the only place to start is with our protagonist, our lead, Kanata, aka Ultraman Decker. And I really like Kanata. I think he's a very good lead character who is just very charming and fun without coming overbearing. Let's cheer up and have fun, kids! Smile, smile! I like how Kanata is written. He feels a lot more like a real person who's trying to stay positive in a bad situation and just doing what he can to help out, but he's still able to have his angry moments of lashing out and being a bit of a frightening badass. Like the moment in the premiere where he just grabs a machine gun off of one of the soldiers and starts firing away at the spear. that was glorious. But more than that, he has a really interesting hero's journey of slowly developing and coming into his own across the series, with a lot of characters asking him, like, what exactly do you want, Kaneda? Yes, you're here, you're in this paramilitary organization trying to help out, you're Ultraman Decker, you're doing good things to stop the bad guys, but what exactly is your motivation? What are you working towards? And in an interesting kind of subversive take, he never finds it. He never has a moment of like, oh, this is who I want to be. He just likes the general idea of pushing forward and helping out however he can to help create a better future for people. And that may sound lame to some, but I actually really like that. I feel like that's surprisingly realistic for a tokusatsu show, because not everybody comes to what they want to do in life when they're so young. Not everybody comes to it ever. Some people just want to get through life and do the best they can to do the most good they can. And having Kaneda be one of those characters while still being such a strong and engaging hero, it shows real prowess in the character writing in this series. And of course, he's also allowed to have some really fun moments of comradeship interacting with the rest of the cast. I especially love his relationship with the kind of mascot character of this season, the robot Hanejiro, how he kind of becomes his confidant in the secret of him being Ultraman Decker. That relationship was really fun. And I also really dug Kengo in this show. Obviously, I had a lot of problems with him in Trigger, but the kind of way he's presented here as the more experienced senior who's able to kind of guide and back Kaneda up when he needs it, though not being in the entire show, is really smart and brings a nice level of continuity to the series. And then we have Ichika and Ryuman, who are the best friend types that make up the rest of the main character triad in this show, and I really like them. They engage with me in a way that their predecessors in Trigger never really did. I can't even remember those characters' names to save my life, but Ichika and Ryuman really did stick with me and were impressive in how they're good fallback characters to use somebody other than Kaneda to explore the world and show how everybody is dealing with the spear barrier and do these kind of cool, fun, classic Ultra feeling one-off sci-fi plots. Like, I really loved the episode early in the show where Ichika befriends a stranded alien and her pet. I like the episode later in the show where Ryuman and the commander kind of help out this alien who's an ailing fighter and needs one last fight to support his kid, and we find out a little bit more about Ryuman's backstory, which, yes, is ripped directly from Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue, but still works really well here. Both the characters are just excellent supporting cast members for Kaneda and the show in general. And by the end of it, I really bought that these were people who grew to appreciate each other throughout the show. They started off as kind of strangers in the beginning, and then they became co-workers who understood how to work with each other, and then I felt they were genuine friends by the finale. That shot where they all give each other the thumbs up, like, genuinely brought a tear to my eye. It was really nicely, subtly done, and made me emotional in the end, and that's the most I can ask for any Toku show. And since I brought him up a second ago, let's talk about the commander and the vice commander. Morohoshi and Kaizaki are two really good parental type characters, I feel. They have a great way of just like subtly being there and guiding the main three all throughout the show. Morohoshi with his kind of want to have this team grow into the protectors of Japan's future that he knows they need to be, and Kaizaki having this great sort of day-to-day operations role that also allows her to get more involved with the main plot of episodes and have even her own little sub arc, which happened to be like one of the best technology versus nature stories I've seen in ages. Really loved that series of episodes. I don't mean to keep harping on Trigger, I want this to be mostly a positive video, but they just really threw into contrast how badly done the supporting characters in Trigger were. You know, there was a commander, a strongman pilot guy, and an aloof pilot lady, and that's really all I could tell you about any of them. I don't remember any characterization for those people, I don't remember their names, and I really wanted to be into them at the start of Trigger, and that still bothers me to this day, clearly. But then we have our human villain for the series, Agamus, who is just fucking great. Like, I really dig how they managed to include a villain that felt very realistic and very compelling in his motivations. Like, you can totally get why he does everything he does after we find out his full backstory, and he's still very charming and likable at moments. And that reveal of finding out who he is and seeing the future Decker, oh my god, that was so hype. That's got to be one of the hypest Toku moments of 2022. But in the end, having him come full circle and see the error of his ways and join the good guys at the last second really just gave you this complete character who felt like a great allegory for people who take situations like COVID and kind of start believing very wild and wrong things because it's the only way they can justify what's happened to them specifically. It's the only way they can deal with reality. Because people like that do exist, and I feel it's good that we tell these these cautionary tales, I should say, in order to cut down on people like that existing, because, oh boy, been wild out there lately, hadn't it? By the way, bravo to the casting department for this show, because not only did they cast great performers who nail all of their roles, but like they casted perfect examples of all of the most fuckable kinds of people. You got boyish main hero, you got tiny sweetheart who will kick your ass, you got aloof scientist man, you got DILF who needs you to be better, MILF who wants you to be better, and misunderstood rogue sexy boy. And then of course there's the effects and the overall directing style in this show, which I do want to highlight because I feel like it keeps the bar that Trigger sets with its amazing effects, and then just raises it ever so slightly more with stuff like the awesome civilian level Ultraman fight on the moon in that one episode, all the like multi-layered shots of the ships and Ultraman and people on the ground doing things that we get throughout the series, and just all those little miniature vehicles and things in the foreground in a lot of the giant scale fights in this show. I know they were there in Trigger and Zet and probably earlier shows too, but they just really hit a new high here. There were some great ones. If I did have to mention any drawbacks to Decker, though, I would definitely say it's the music, because it's not outright bad, it's just not very memorable for me. A lot of it is either really generic background type stuff that you don't even notice, or rehashes of classic Ultra tunes that's in like almost every show. And the main theme, it's good, but it just doesn't stick with me. It's never one that I want to re-listen to. Like when I'm watching the show, I'm like, yeah, I like this song. This is a good intro song, but I've never wanted to listen to it on its own, which is one thing I would definitely say Trigger did better than Decker. Trigger's theme is a fucking bop, and I used to love listening to that while I was like working out and shit all the time. Toys are a little weaker this year too. Like I didn't get any of them, but I've watched a few reviews here and there, and of course you see the ads whenever you watch the episodes on the official Ultraman YouTube channel, as you should, but I never got any hands-on experience with them, mainly because I just didn't have that spare money to do so. So like, hey, hit up the Patreon, buy some merch, all that kind of stuff if you want me to talk about Ultraman toys one day. But the changer just looked really lame, just being like a giant handheld version of his face with a big spike that comes out, and the gimmick didn't seem fairly exciting because it was just cards again. And, like, no offense to the voice actor, but the voice they went with for the changer just sounded so lame. It sounded like a plug-in text-to-speech program, and it never got me hyped. It was okay with some of the weapon toys, which were better than the main changer, but still not cool enough to make me want to buy them. And like, I know vinyls and little fighter ships are the main selling point of most Ultra lines. They're like the big mainstays, but that kind of stuff just never interests me. Sorry. However, I will say that Decker's suits, all of which are great, by the way, love Flash, love Strong, love Miracle, love Dynamic Type. They all seem to be translating fairly well to figure ones, so maybe I'll pick up a Decker figure ones at some point. But just not the strongest toy line, in my opinion, as a spectator who watches way too many toy reviews and things. But overall, I really did like Decker. It's not a great show. It's not going to replace Zet as my fave, because there's a few rocky points here and there. There's some episodes right before they go into the final arc that I just did not care for. Like that whole episode with the old lady at the village felt very odd to me. I'm sure it was playing off of some classic Ultra concept I'm not familiar with, but to me it just felt very out of left field and like it didn't gel with the rest of the show. But most of the show is very confident. It tells a solid story that plays on current events without getting too topical and too beating you across the head, and overall just has a very fun, engaging cast. So I would say it's a light 8 out of 10 that I would recommend to anybody. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I have to say on Ultraman Decker. I may have some deeper thoughts down the line. I may have some more specific things I want to touch on at some point. But I think that's pretty good for a general series review. And yeah, I could have waited to do Journey Beyond along with the main show, but then I couldn't tell you to check out Twit. I do a weekly tokusatsu podcast, guys. Every week, myself and True Buster discuss all the news and new episodes or movies that have come out in the last week. So if you want to hear my thoughts on Journey to Beyond when it drops, go listen to Twit over on the Modular Media channel. It's a good show that I enjoy making every single week. That there's new content to talk about. We do take breaks whenever Toku is on breaks, because there was like a break at right at the start. You get the point. Check out Twit, and before you do, don't forget to do all the YouTube things. Like, comment, subscribe, all that shiz. Thank you for watching, and wake up, sheeple. Oh, I've wanted to make that joke since the show started.